So let us start with list. We will work with list today. So lists are used to store multiple items in a single variable. So we know basically a variable, it generally holds only one value, but there could be instances wherein we need to store a lot of values in a single variable. So that is where we use list. So lists are one of the four built-in data types in Python. They are used to store collection of data. The other three are generally tuple, set, and dictionary. They all have different qualities and usage. Remember, list items, they are ordered, changeable, and they allow duplicate values. The list is changeable means that we can add, we can change, and we can remove items in a list after it has been created. So how do we create a list? So I need to type in the name which I need to give a list. Say I need to create a list of colors. So the name for the list that I chose is colors. So I just write colors, which is going to be the name, and put an equal to sign, and then opening and closing square brackets. I haven't added anything into this list, which means it is an empty list. So when I run here in the Explorer, you can see the name is colors, the type is list, the size is 0, which means there are no elements in the list, and you can't see. Now a list can hold numbers, it can hold text kind of data, it can hold a mixture of text and numbers as well. It can also hold multiple lists. That is, if you have lists, you can create a list which hold all these lists together. A list is basically like an array. So if I want to add different elements to the list of colors, say I need to add the individual names. So I will first create an element black, which is the first value. Then I create a second value, say red. I add a third item to the list, say blue. Let me add one more, white. So I have just added four items to the list. Now when I run, you can see that the size has changed. It is size 4, which means there are four items in this list and the values is as you can see. So all these individual items, because these are text values, I am entering them in inverted commas, and the items are separated by comma to tell Python that these are different items. So you can also add a number to this. So I have added 56. Now when I run, I see the size has increased to 5 and 56 is the last element as I have entered. So this is how we create a list. There could be instances where I want to print out, after some operations, I print out the list. So I just type print and I mention colors. When I run, you get the entire list as it is. So black, red, blue, white, and 56. Now, I don't want the entire list. Uh, I just want to say a specific element from a list. How do I call them? So in that case, position, I need to specify the index position. So what are the index position? So let me just take you to Excel. So my first element was black. I will just make here. So the name of the list was colors, and the first element, that is starting value, was black. The second value was red, blue, white. Let me remove 56 from here. I will not need this now. So red, blue, and white. So my second element is red. My third element is blue, and my fourth element is white. Let me just add randomly some more values. Say I have green, I then have purple, and I have orange. So I have added 7 elements to this list. What we understand from here is that the first element will occupy the index position 0. The second item will occupy the index position 1. So you see the third item will occupy the index position 2. So these index positions are increasing in a positive manner. We call this as positive indexing. So if I want to print the fifth element, which is the fifth element? The fifth element is green. Let me start from here. Black is the first element, red is second, blue is third, white is fourth, green is fifth. What is its index position? Its index position is 4. So I will need to tell Python to print from colors the value at the index position of 4. So just remember the fifth element will have an index position of 4. The first element will have an index position of 0. It is always n minus 1. You need to remember this. So how do I call this in print statement here? After colors, put square brackets, and inside square brackets specify the index position. So the fifth element, which means fourth index position. So when I run this here in the output thing, you get list index out of range. This is because here I haven't specified. Here black is 0, red is 1, blue is 2, white is 3. What are the other two elements? I need to add them. So let me just check back my Excel. So I had added green, purple, and orange. Let me copy it from here, and I'll add these values. So green, purple, and orange. So this is a comprehensive list. Let me just put an inverted comma to complete. And now when I run, okay, there is this square bracket which had come error. Now let me run and see, I got this green here. So this is the output. If I wanted to print blue, the index position for blue is 2, 0, 1, 2. So I just type here 2. And when I run this, I get blue. What is this? This is positive indexing. I can also have negative indexing. Negative indexing starts from behind, and the last value will have a position of -1. The second last value will have a position of -2. Third last will have a position of -3, and so on. So remember, positive indexing begins with 1, negative indexing begins with -1 from the last. So if I want to print purple from negative indexing, using negative indexing, then the index position will be -2. If I wanted to print using positive indexing, the index position will be 5. Here, so instead of 2, I put -2 because I want to print purple using negative indexing. So I get purple. This is one way of doing. Another, now how do we iterate over a list? So what we can do is, if I want to print the entire list as it is, so I just print color. So as you had seen, the entire list runs and you can get the entire list in inverted commas and square brackets. But what if I don't want the square brackets and inverted commas? Just put a asterisk mark before color, that is before the printing. Within the print statement, just put a hash like this. So when I run, you just see, you just get the values without any commas or without any output, square brackets. I can use a for loop also to print list. So by using for I in list, this is one way. What I am doing over here is I am iterating through the list. For print I. What is going to happen here is that I will take on the actual values of the list elements. So the first case, when the loop runs, the value of I will be equal to black. The second time the loop runs, the value of I will be equal to red. So on it goes on increasing. So when I run, I made a mistake. So instead of list, I need to specify the name of the list, which is colors. And let me run once again. So you see black, red, blue, white, green, purple, orange. This is one way. Another way of doing this is I will specify the range. For I in range, how many values are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I just specify for I in range 7, and I will say print the value which is at the ith position in colors. So you get black, red, blue, white, green, purple, orange. So what difference does this make when I write for I in colors? Print I. So if I run, you basically see, print I. The output essentially remains the same, starting from black going up to orange, starting from black going up to orange. These first values which you see, which I have highlighted, is because of the code in line 3 and 4. Output because of lines in 6 and 7 will be the section that I am now highlighting. So the output remains same, but the way it runs is different. Here in lines 3 and 4, when I'm saying I in range 7, I will take on values like 0, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm saying print out from colors the value at the 0th index position, the value at the first index position. When I'm writing a code, as you can see in line 6 and 7, I will actually take the values of the list, not 0, 1, 2, 3, which means in this case, I will be equal to black, it will be equal to red, equal to blue. In the previous case, it was I was 0, I was 1, I was 2. So these are the two ways of you can use the for loop to iterate over a list. So many of the time, there are various operations. Let us say we are creating a database or we are creating a list of students who are present in a class. So we will need to check how many students are there in a class. We will need to add, some students may have joined in later, so we'll need to add their names. Some students might have left the class, so we will need to remove their name from the list. So these are all various operations of how we can change the values in a list. So one thing I just wanted to show, for when I'm saying range 7, here in this case, the list loop will run only 7 times, correct? Now, what if there were a 8th element, say pink? In this case, the loop will not run for 8. It will just run up to 7 times. I will just get these values I highlighted. The value pink I will not get. So what I will need to do is I will need to modify this to 8. Similarly, what happens is now list is dynamic, right? Every time I add element, I remove element, the length of the list, that is the number of elements in the list, it keeps on changing. I cannot every time come here and make that changes. So I want this to change automatically as the list goes on increasing or decreasing. So for that, what I will need to do is I will count how many elements are there. For counting how many elements are there in a list, I have this function len. It stands for length, len. So you need to determine length of what? I need to determine the length of the list colors. So it basically tells me how many elements are there. So this value which is there is going to come, I will pass to a variable. So the length of colors, that is the total number of elements in the list, will go to A. And here instead of 8, I will specify A. So every time this list gets modified, the value in A will get modified and accordingly the for loop will run. So I can run this and I get the output same. So now you see pink is also coming. Now it is not essential that you determine the length and put it to A and then this A you call it over here in the for loop. You can directly copy this entire thing and then within the range you can just paste it directly. So you can minimize the number of lines and you can run the entire output. Now, how do we check whether an element is present or not? Say, for example, if this is a list of 8 elements, it is very clear. I can see. But what if it was a list consisting of 50,000 elements? Many of the time, these values they are stored in a database, and you are not able to view what it is as an operator at the front end. So you will need to check whether a particular value is there, whether a student was added. Or if it only if he is not added, then I will add him to a list. So how do I check in this particular case? I can use the if. So if say what is the value that I wanted to check? I wanted to check whether blue is present. So I will type if blue. I will use keyword in. If blue in colors. If blue in colors. I will say print yes. Else print no. When I run this, because I know blue is there, so I'm checking if blue is in colors, the condition is true. That is why it printed yes. If blue was not there, which means the if condition failed, so the else part would run and I would have got a no statement. So that is how I can check if an element is there. We have already looked at how to determine the length of a list. We will now go to how do I need add elements from a list. Say if I need to add some specific element, I need to add a new color to this list. Let me say I wanted to add green once again. So there are two students in a class whose names are green. So the second student's name I need to add. So I can use the append function. So I simply say colors, that is the name of the list, dot append. And I specify the value which I want to append. The value which I want to append was green. And then after this, I will print colors. When I run the statement now, I can see black, red, everything green here, and last I get green once again. So remember append function, it always adds value to the end of a list. There could be cases where you want to specify it to be at a particular position, which means let us say I wanted this new value of green to be before orange. In such a case, I will need to specify the index position and the command changes. Instead of append, the function will now be insert. Colors.insert, that is the list name dot insert is a function. The value which I wanted to insert, after a comma, specify the index position. So I will have to calculate the index position. So black is going to be 0, red will be 1, blue will be 2, white will be 3, green will be 4, purple will be 5, orange is currently at 6, which means so the new value will occupy the index position of 6. When I run this once again, I get a string object cannot interpret it as an integer. I will need to identify. I just made a let me correct my mistake. Yeah. So first we need to specify the index position and then the value which you need to insert at the index position. So now in the output you can see green has come at the index position of 6, which means it is before orange. So we all now what next is we will now need to, so there could be cases. So we will need to sort a list. So if you have a list consisting of numbers, the list will be sorted in the ascending order. If the list consists of letter or text, then they would be basically sorted alphabetically. So if I want to sort a list, I simply type the list name, which is colors, and I use the sort function. So here, after sorting, when I print, I will see. So initially I had black, red, blue, white, but after sorting in the alphabetical order, I get black, blue, green, orange, pink, purple, red, white. What if I, instead of this, if I say I had a list of numbers, So let me just create a new list to get this very clear. So let us say these are marks of a students in a particular subject, and the values are say 45, 49, 23. These are some random values which I am using: perfect 50, 35, 12. I'm just entering some, and lastly 47. So if I sort now, let me just put marks here, replace this with marks. I am sorting this. Let me just identify it, make changes. Yeah. So I will now get the list which was initially in some random order is now sorted. It is now in the ascending order. What if I want to reverse the list? So we have this function which is reverse. Remember, reverse function does not sort in the descending order. It just reverses the list as it was. So in the previous list, we had 12 at the second last position and 47 at the last position. I am just reversing this list. Now you see 47 will be the first value, 12 will be the second value. So what if I want to print a list in the descending order? So what I will do initially is I will sort the list in the ascending order. So marks dot sort, and then I will reverse it once it is sorted. So I get the descending order. So 50, 49, 47, and I'm going up to 12. So now what if I want to remove, say this entry of 23, which you can see, say was actually entered incorrectly. I want to remove that. So what I will use the pop function. I can use the remove function. So I will say marks dot. What value do I want to remove? I want to remove the value of 23. So the list name, the function is remove, the value which you wanted to remove, that is 23. And I run. So now I get 23, which was there before 50 is not there because 23 is removed. I just specify the value. What if there were multiple values? Say there was 123 before 35 and I wanted to remove both these 23. So when I run this, actually the remove function just removes the first instance of the value that it encounters. So the first time it encountered was at 23. So this 23 is removed. However, the second value of 23 remains. So if I want to remove that, then I will have to count. I will have to run this. There are two types. So now first time, the first 23 went. Second time when I run, so the line at the fourth position removes this 23. This is what we do. So you can actually use a for loop. That is, you can say for I in range, how many times you will. So I will now need to count how many times 23 occurs. So for that, I will say A is equal to the name of the list is marks dot count, which is the value that I wanted to count. The value count is 23. So that value will come to A. And here I will now say directly for I in range A. And then let me just complete my for loop. Marks dot remove which value 23. So first I am counting how many times 23 is appearing, and then as per that I am running the for loop, and then I can print the print A. Sorry, not A, print marks. So I get 45. So I get the value without 23. So this is remove function. What we are going to look is not the pop function. The difference between remove position and the pop function is that remove position actually removes, you specify the element to be removed by specifying the value. Pop function may we specify the index position from which a value is to be removed. So if I wanted to remove 23, so the index position of 23 is 2. 45 is 0, 49 is 1, 23 will have a position of 2. So here I will specify 2 and I print pop. So I get this 23, which was at the index position. No matter whatever value it was, the value at the second index position will always be, the value with an index position of 2, which means the third value will be removed. So in remove function, we specify the value which is to be removed. In pop function, we specify the index position from which a value is to be removed. Now we have already looked at count function, how we can count how many times an element is appearing. We will look at a clear function. So if I want to say, if I had a list, let us say these are marks of students who have scored currently, these are their marks in the current semester. In the next semester, these students will go to a different class and new set of students will come in. So I will need to empty out the existing list. For that, I can use the clear statement. So marks dot clear function. And then after this, let me print marks. And let me run now. So you see, it has become an empty list because there is no element in marks. Everything has been cleared. We will now look at copy. How do we use a copy statement? Generally, what happens is if I let us say create a new list marks1, and if I say marks1 is equal to marks, and then if I modify marks, let us say I clear marks itself. So marks dot clear. I am clearing the list of marks. And if I now say print marks1, what happens is our general understanding is that marks1 should remain unaffected because marks1 is a separate list which is having the values same as similar to marks. Now after that I am clearing marks, so marks1 should remain unlimited, should remain unaffected, but that is not how Python works with lists. The logic is true for variables but not for lists. In a list, when I'm saying marks1 is equal to marks, a new list with marks1 is not created. It works like a pointer, marks1. So we already have a list in database to which identified by marks. This list of marks1 is also pointing to that same list, which means if I modify marks, by default marks1 will also get modified. So here, which is very clear, that is I am modifying marks and I'm trying to print marks1. Ideally marks1 should have remained unaffected as per our thought process, but we see here that it gets affected. So we need to remember whenever we are using this statement, that is new list is equal to an old list. So a new list is not directly created. Marks1 will be pointing to that older list. So in such a cases, we'll have to create a copy of that list and then say marks1 is equal to that copy. So how we do that is marks1 is equal to marks dot copy. Here in this particular case, we are creating a duplicate. Marks1 will be a print marks1. I see in the print statement that the list marks1 is now unaffected. Previously it was empty. Here now it is unaffected. So remember, when you're working with list, when you want to duplicate a list, please use this copy function. We need to write some programs. Before we that, I will show you how slicing works. So here, let me say I want to print list marks. So what happens now is the entire list is printed as it is. But what if I just wanted to print from 49 to 35? So in that particular case, I can use slicing. That is after marks, if I will specify now 49, what is the start index position of 49? The index position is 1. 45, 0, 49 is 1. So I specify the starting index position. And up to what value do I want? I want the value up to 35. What is the index position of 35? 45 is 0, 49 is 1, 23 is 2, 50 is 3, 23 is 4, 35 is 5. So here, remember, it should be as we did in for loop, n plus 1. So 35 had an index position of 5. So here it would be 5 plus 1, which means it is 6. So I now run this. So I get the list as you can see. What from 49 I wanted towards last, right up to 47. In such cases, I need not specify the end index position. I can just leave it blank. So it starts from 49 and it goes up till last. What if I wanted from starting and I wanted to go up to 50, which means I don't specify the start position and 50. So 45 is at 0, 49 is at 1, 23 is at 2, 50 is at 3. So 3 plus 1, 4. I just add 4 over here. So I get my list, which is going up to 50. These are called as slicing. What if I wanted to print the entire list as it is? So I don't specify the start value and I don't specify the end value also. And I can see the result. Now the point is, why if I wanted the entire list to print as it is, why did I do the slicing itself? I could have, just printed like this. So yeah, in print, while printing, it doesn't make an effect. But what if I previously I had said, that is if I wanted to create a new list marks1, and if I write as marks, it is not going to be a new list. It is just going to be pointing to the old list itself. So in such cases, what we had looked, we use the copy function. Now, instead of using the copy function, I can use the slicing also. So here I can now say, that is start from first and go up to last. So remember here marks1 would be a separate list, which is a copy of the previous marks list. I can do this, or I can use start. I can specify a start position. I can specify an end position also, and then I can run. Many of the time what happens is we will look at the split function. So we had looked at split function. Split function here, let us say I am asking a user to enter 5 numbers, and based on these values, I need to do some operations. So for that case, if I just create, say if a user is entering 5 values, normally we would need 5 different variables to hold all of these values. But here I can store those values in a list. So I will try A is equal to, I need 5 numbers from a user. So I will say input in the input statement, I will put out my print my message, enter 5 numbers. How I need to help Python recognize how these numbers are separated. So I will now tell, so enter 5 numbers separated by a comma or by comma, by space, whatever you want. Now I will use a split function, split, and I will specify how it is to be split. So in inverted commas, because the numbers are going to be coming or separated by commas, I need to tell Python that these are separated by commas. So I put a comma in inverted commas. I specify a small letter comma, as you can see. So how Python does is, the moment it encounters a comma, it will put a split. That is the first. So let me run this function to you. So I will now use a print statement, print A. So when I run, I get enter 5 numbers separated by comma. So 45, comma 89, comma 12, comma 56, and comma 23. After the last value, we need not insert a comma. Before I haven't yet entered the, I haven't hit the entered button. So what happens is, the first value before the value before the first comma goes in is the first element. The value before the second comma will be the second value. Before the third comma will be the third value, so on. So let me just click the enter. Yeah. And I can see now it has created a list. What has happened is, because these values were coming from the keyboard, these, even though these were numbers, Python is initially considering them as text. So we now need to carry out mathematical operations. I will need to convert these strings or these text values to numbers. I cannot directly put an int or a float over here, because int function and float function typecasting is basically what we're doing. It works with one value at a time. So for that, in such cases, I will now use a for loop. So what I will do is, I will for I in range len a, that is length of a. What I'm going to do is, value at the ith position of a will be equal to int of a. So the value which is at the ith position, which is currently a text, will be converted to an integer, and it will be stored back to the ith position itself. So this will work for the when I is 0, for the first position, second position, third position, it will move on. So whenever we need to do mathematical operations, remember there should be a first point, that is converting the numbers to integer or decimal, as ever as the case may be. And then I can do a lot of operations which we wanted. So we'll look at, say, some examples. So one example which we will now try to look into is, you are given a list of non-repeating integers. We need to find out the second maximum and the second minimum in this list. So how can we do that? That is, user will enter randomly 5 values. So how do we identify which is the second largest and the second smallest? So simply, we will convert these values to an integer or a decimal. We will sort them in the ascending order. Once they are sorted in the ascending order, it becomes very clear. The value at the second position will be the second smallest, and the value at the second last position will be the second largest. How do I print them? I will print them the second smallest. So let me just run this code for. So I'm assuming that the user is going to just enter all integers, or I will specify enter 5 integers separated by comma, and then I will first convert those numbers into an integer, and then I will start. So the name of the list is going to be A. So I will sort this list. Once I have sorted this list, then I will print the value, or the second smallest value is I will now, after a comma, specify where is that value. So once I have a sorted list, I know the second value, which means an index position would be 1. The first value will have an index position of 0. The second value will have an index position of 1. So it would be at the first index position. It will be at the index position 1 from the list. Similarly, the second largest value, the second largest, let me just correct the mistake which I have made here. The second largest value will be the second last value from back, which means if there are only 5 numbers, then I know for sure that it would be the fourth value, which means index position will be 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. So I can specify 3 in this particular case. But what if I did not know here, okay, instead of this, because I know 5 integers, or I'm randomly asking a user to enter as many numbers as your choice. Now I do not know how many values are going to be there. So I will need to use the length function, determine how many elements are there, and then I can specify the second last position. Once I sort the list, I always know that the smallest value will always be at the second position or index position of 1. But second largest will depend upon how long the list is. So for in such cases, either use the length function, determine the index position, and then put it here, or you can use negative indexing. We always know once a list is sorted, the largest value will be the last value, which means index position will be -1. The second smallest will have an index position of -2 using negative indexing. So I put -2. So now it works how no matter whatever elements, how many elements are entered, this program will run for sure. So I made a syntax error here. Let me identify. So for I in range A, length of A. Let me stop my recording for a minute. Wait, I will pause my recording. Is there an option for pause? I don't have a recording for pausing. So is my recording on? Let me just check. Yeah, recording is on. Yeah. Going forward. So when I run this, the error that was coming, let me just clear out everything here. The error that was coming. Uh-oh. The error basically that we find over here is because of this bracket which was not closed. So I just remove that and then I find that there is no error now. So enter integer separated by comma. So I haven't specified how many values. The user is free to enter as many numbers as they want. Let us assume that only thing is those numbers need to be separated by comma. So 45 is my first number, 23 is my second number, 89 is my third number, 12 is my fourth number. Let us say 57 is my 5 numbers. I just enter 5 numbers. So once I click enter, what is going to be happening is these values will be converted to an integer in lines 3 and 4. In line 6, they would be sorted in the ascending order. And then the second smallest and the second largest value, which is 23 and 57, will be printed. So this is how you can do. We will now look at a second program. What we will look at, we will ask user to enter some numbers, and from that we will only print those numbers which are not multiples of 5. How do I check whether a number is not a multiple of 5? I will divide that number by 5, and if the remainder is 0, it means it is a multiple. If the remainder is not 0, it is not a multiple. So using the same, I will just make small modifications. So what I will now need to do is, to store all those values which are not multiples of 5, I will create B as a separate list. And then here, what I will do, I will first convert that value. That is the first, the value at the ith position of A will be converted to an integer. I will assume that the user is just going to enter integers, and then those values will be stored to at the same position. What I will next check is, I will then do if the value which was there at I at position. Now to check the remainder, I use the modulus operator. That is, if you divide that by 5, and if the remainder is equal to 0, if the remainder is equal to 0, I will not do anything. So I'll just put continue, and then else, that is, if the remainder is not 0, then I will add that value to the list B. So I will use the append function, B dot append, and I will append it with the value which is A of I. This is how we can do this. Other ways, what I can do this, instead of doing not equal to 0, instead of checking whether it is equal to 0, I will straight away put not equal to 0. That is, if the remainder is not equal to 0, then what should I do? I should append that value to B. I will not use an else statement. That is, if the condition is not met, which means if the value is a multiple of 0, I am not specifying anything to be done. Once I do this, I will now simply print out the list B. So let me just create I enter enter integer separated by a comma. So I first enter 45, which is a multiple. I then enter 12, which is not a multiple. I enter 23, which is not a multiple. I enter 50, which is not a multiple. So and let me enter one more value, say 75. So I have entered 3 values which are multiples and 2 values which are not multiple. If the coding is right, then at the output, I should be just getting a list consisting of 12 and 23. The other value should not go into B. Let me run and see. Okay, here let me click enter. Yeah. So what I get is, I just get 12 and 23. So because the remainder was 45, when I divide 50 by 5 and when I divide 75 by 5, or when I divide 45 by 5, the remainder is 0, which means the if condition was not met. If condition is met, only if the remainder is not 0. So it didn't add it to B, and I'm just printing out the list. This is one program. Another program that we will look into is, we will ask a user. Let me just show here. Yeah, we will ask a user to enter some number, say 45, 12, 23. We'll ask user to enter 3 numbers separated by commas. We assume that the user entered these values. What our program should do is, the program should first reverse this, which means 23 will come first, 12 should come at the mid, and 45 should come at the last. And then it should add these numbers. So 45 to 23, the answer. So I'll just write a sum function, sum 45 to 23. So I get the answer is 68. 12 plus 12 is 24. And here I should get 68 once again. So that is, user enters 45, 12, 23. However, output should give me 68, 24, 68. You got what is to be done. That is, so what we are doing is, we are creating the list entered by user. We are creating a separate list by reversing, and the first element of the original list and the new list are added and stored to the resultant. The second element of the original list and the new list are added, stored to the resultant. That is how we function here. So here I am asking user to enter a list. Sorry, user to enter 3 numbers. So let me just enter 3 integers separated by a comma. User enters them, those values, assuming it goes to A. Then what I am doing is, each value in A, which is text, I am converting them into an integer and storing back in A itself. After this, what I do is, now I will create a list B, which is a reverse of A. So first I will say B is equal to A dot copy. So I am creating a duplicate list B, and then I will sort B, or I will reverse B, B dot reverse. Now what I will do is, to store the resultant, I will create an empty list C, and in this empty list, what I will now do is, I will add values, or keep on appending the values of the addition of values of a and b. So I will use a for loop for I in range, that is to len, that is length of a. What I want to do is c dot append. I cannot use c dot I because IC is an empty list. There are no values. Many of the time what I have found students is they attempt to write this c of I is equal to a of I plus b of I. But this will result in an error. Why this will result in an error? Because C is an empty list. So there is no index position itself initially for C. So that is why we won't use this. We will directly use the append function. C dot append. That is add value at the ith position of A and the bth position of A to each other and append it to C. Once I do that, I will now finally print C. So let me run this command, enter three numbers separated by commas. So the values which I use were 45, 12, 23, 45, 12, 23. I click enter. So I get the answer 68, 24, 68 as was decided. This is what we were looking into. There are other ways also of how you can achieve this. So we will not go into that discussion. I'm just demonstrating how we can do, because depending upon how you think, how you create or come with a logic flow, you can various techniques to do that. This length function that we have also works with string. That is, if I have, say, A is a string character. Let us say A is country. A is equal to the value country. A is a variable now, and the value that is stored is country, which is of type string. It's a text value. So I can also use, to determine how many elements or how many characters are there in A. I can use the length function. B is equal to len, length of A. That is the value which is there in A. And if I try to print B, so in the output section, I get 7 because there are 7 characters in country. Instead of that, let us say I just have car. So now when I run, I get 3. There are 7 characters in 3. So you can do this also. One programming, what we will now do is, I will just explain one more code, and then we can start with the programming exercises. The other code which I wanted to show you is, let me clear out everything. Yeah. We will ask a user to enter a binary number. So let us say he enters 101010. This is something that a user enters. Now, next what is intended is, we need to check by flipping any one digit, is it possible to convert this entire number only of ones or only of zeros? Which I mean over here is that how many ones are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. In this binary number, there are 4 ones and 3 zeros. So to make this number entirely of ones, all these 3 zeros should be flipped to 1. Or if I want to make this number entirely of zeros, all these 4 ones should be flipped to 0. Which means by flipping only one digit, it is not possible to convert it into entirely of ones or zeros. Instead of this, if the number that was entered by the user was, say, something like this. Here in this new number, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ones and only 1 0. If I just flip this 1 0 to 1, then the entire number consists of ones. Or in the other case, let us assume that the user had entered a number like this, with a 0 at the second position, rest all 1. So here, if I just, let me just change it. Let us assume the user had entered a number like this. Here, if I just flip this 1 to 0, then the entire number will consist of zeros. So we want to check, that is, we will ask user to enter a binary number, and then we will now check whether that binary number can, just by flipping one digit, whether it can be converted to zeros or only ones. So how do we make this? Is we will first keep track of a counter to track how many ones are present, a counter to track how many zeros are present. So the user, assuming enters this number, we will count how many ones are there and how many zeros are there. So there are 4 ones and there are 3 zeros. So here what we now conclude is that only if any one of these counter is equal to 1, only then the number is flippable. But here, because there are 4 ones and 3 zeros, by flipping only one digit, the entire number cannot be made of ones and zeros. In the meantime, if we look at the new number, which is at line number 5, here, how many ones are there? There is just 1 ones and there are 6 zeros. So here, because the counter 1 is equal to 1, just by flipping one value, the entire number can be converted to zeros. That is what we are going to look. So you create 2 counters to determine how many ones and zeros are there. If any one of these counters is equal to 1, it means the number can be flipped by flipping can be converted to only ones or zeros as ever the case may be. So what happens is you ask user to enter a number, then you will count how many ones are there. So how will we write this code here is, let us go. So I will first ask user input message, enter a binary number. So the user enters a binary number, that number is there. Now to count zeros and one, I use a counter, count underscore zero, which is a counter to count how many zeros are there. I initiate that to zero initially. Similarly, count underscore one to determine how many ones are there. I initiate this to one. Next is now I need to actually count how many there. So for I in range length of A, that is as many characters are there in A, for so many times the for loop will run. What we will now check is, we will check if the value at the ith position, which means 0th position, first position, second position, if that equal to 0, which means we should increment the count zero counter by 1. So count 0 plus, which means whatever value which was there in the counter 0, add 1 to it, and we are basically updating the counter 0. Next is I will use elif a I equal to 1. Now if I run this, I will now change this. I will now say I will update the counter 1. So counter for 1 will now be updated. Once I do this, I will now count. That is, if count the counter for 0 equal 1, or counter for 1, if that is equal to 1, then I will say print the number is flippable. What I'm trying to do is, the number can be converted to only ones or zeros just by flipping any one digit. Just by flipping one digit. Else, like print, not possible. Or I won't make this. I'll just, simply I'll just type this. Possible, and I will say not possible. So let me run this command. So enter a binary number. So binary number I'm entering is say 11001, and I click enter. So I get that it is possible that by flipping one digit, the entire number can be made to be equal to, by just flipping any one of the digit, the entire number will consist only of ones or zeros. But I know it is not true, because I will need to flip all these 4 ones or these 3 zeros. So I will have to flip 3 times or flip 4 times. So I made an error in the code. The error that I made here is that the value which is coming from the user is actually a text, because I'm not converting into an integer. So it is a text. Once it is a text, what I next do is I am now comparing here. So the value which is there at the ith position of A is a text. I am comparing that with an integer value 0. So I will need to convert this to a text. So this is what I'm doing. Let me rewrite this code and check. So binary 11000. So now I get it is not possible. Let me run this code once again. Now I just put 11011. So I know this is possible. So let me run this and see whether my code runs. Okay, I need to click and enter here. Yeah, so it is possible. Let me just run once again. Enter some other random values which is not flippable, and I click enter. So not possible. My code is running. Yeah, so we will stop here with this.